Terminal leave anyways. I mean,
Terminal leave.
it's the military way of saying you're on your way out. You gotta turn up you don't have a setting for me yet? Usually he just turns it down.
Yeah. This is the first time you're seeing it. So these are the ones we're going to talk about. Nope.
But we got a voter.
Yeah, we'll walk through them. It's basically what we discussed. No wait. It's what we discussed
What do you have? Yeah. 39.
We have a little bit of a traffic jam with people jumping online, so give it just one more minute.
Sarah, can you give us a number of how many we have online? Whenever it
Right
starts
now
to
it's
stagnate?
20. But they're
I better put this where it needs to be. My wife would tell me, put it down, no texting while you're driving. You have 8:30?
I do have 8:30.
I see that it's 8:30. We will call the meeting to order of the Highway Commission of the Nebraska Department of Transportation. We'd like to welcome everyone that's here with us this morning and those individuals who are online that have joined us. Sarah, do you want to?
Yes, for the record, the State Highway Commission is assembled in NDOT headquarters, 1500 Nebraska Parkway in Lincoln, Nebraska. The date is December 8th, 2023. The time is 8:30, and there is a copy of the Open Meetings Act at the front of the room. Commissioner Koppel.
Present.
Commissioner Fagerland.
Present.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Here.
Commissioner Mello.
Here.
Commissioner Hawks.
Here.
Commissioner Kindig.
Here.
Commissioner Wolford.
Here.
Commissioner Leaf Green is absent today. So, roll.
Thank you. Before we move to the next item on the agenda, I would like to advise those that are watching on live stream or present that there will be an opportunity toward the end of the meeting for public input. And we welcome any public input that any of you may have relative to issues that are before the commission. Moving then to the next item would be the review and approval of the October 27, 2023 meeting minutes. I would entertain a motion and a second.
Motion to approve October 27, 2023 meeting.
Second. Sarah, would you call the question, please?
Commissioner Koppel.
Yes.
Commissioner Fagerland.
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes.
Commissioner Mello.
Yes.
Commissioner Hawks.
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig.
Yes.
Commissioner Wolford.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Thank you. The next item is on the agenda is an opportunity to welcome the newest commissioner, Heath Mello. Heath, would you like to share a little bit about yourself, your history with the commissioners and with the individuals who are present or attending by Zoom, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Kramer. For those who I've not been able to spend a lot of time with, Heath Mello, representing District 2. Some of you I had worked with in a prior life as a Nebraska State Senator, representing District 5 in South Omaha from 2009 to 2016, as well as some of you as a connected to the University of Nebraska system, where I recently spent the last 6 years as a senior executive with them. Currently, I'm the president CEO of the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce. We are a 6-county economic development organization in Nebraska, with a couple counties in Iowa as well that we represent. So transportation infrastructure is vital to the Greater Omaha metro area, and look forward to working with all of you in this exciting role.
Thank you. And in September, we welcomed Commissioner McInnes. Commissioner, would you like to share a little bit about your history and about yourself, please?
Well, I'd love to. Rich McGinnis, live here in Lincoln, representing District 1, which is southeast Nebraska. And like Mr. Mello, Commissioner Mello, prior life, I was on the Lincoln City Council. And prior to that, I was on the Lincoln School Board. And for fun, I actually work at NAI FMA Realty and do commercial real estate. So I'm involved a lot with transportation and roads.
Okay, thanks. Let's move then to the next item on the agenda. We're dealing with the business of the meeting. The first item is the director's remark. Director Kramer, would you like to share your comments with everyone, please?
I would. Thank you for the opportunity. First, I just want to note that we do have a full commission for the first time in quite a while. So I want to thank everyone for their service and being willing to serve on the Highway Commission. On behalf of Governor Pillen, who has reappointed or selected his commissioners, his guidance for this commission is very much to take up the issues that are going to move us to the next generation of transportation movement. And so for us, this is an exciting day. To have Commissioner Mello join us, to have Commissioner McGinnis on board under the leadership of Commissioner Koppel, I think we can do a lot. So we're very excited. Definitely look for more agendas similar to today. And so as we move forward, we welcome the input and continue to stay engaged, please. So on that note, I know we've had some feedback from the commission on making sure that we follow up on past questions or past questions for the record. And so I wanted to follow up. There was a question last month on Highway 81, and just start there. So we had a question from Mr. Tom Nelson on bypasses around US 81. And I think it's important to note that anytime the DOT looks at one of these corridors, whether it be the 275 corridor that we looked at, or some of these others on 75, 77, we always look at what can we deliver and what's going to serve the communities along that route, understanding the intent of original BNA legislation on the expressway system. And so as we look at it, I think cost is definitely something that we put a lot of weight on, but also how it's going to serve the communities. We want to make sure that as we're going through these communities, or as we're providing transportation improvements, that we don't completely bypass, to use the word, right? We are part of making sure that that community continues to thrive. And so with that, just a few numbers here. So just on average, bypasses can cost anywhere from 60 million to 100 million. So when you look at the potential to have bypasses around the Strongsburg, Osceola, or Shelby area, you're having a significant cost increase with those types of projects. And so as we look at this, the where we are right now, if you're going to go through the town, your cost is going to be about 7% to 11% of that original volume. So significant cost savings when we're going to go through those communities, as well as an opportunity to potentially help that community with their transportation system through. And so for us, we'll continue to evaluate the NEPA process or our environmental process if it's state funded. It gives us the opportunity to engage and work with those communities. So as Highway 81 moves on, we'll continue to do that. And there's a lot of people in this room that will be a part of that conversation. Typically, we would go through introductions, but looking out, I have a hefty representation from my team today. And so as you'll see, we've got representation from roadway design, from right-of-way, from program management, local assistance, project delivery. And so I won't go through everyone, but if there's any questions you have, feel assured that there's someone in the room today that can. So we'll continue to close out those questions that we have monthly during my remarks as we move forward. So after that, I want to talk about two main things today. I want to talk about safety and what we've done. And I want to talk a little bit about our needs assessment hearing that we had earlier this month, or earlier this week. It feels like this month. So on safety, we do have Don Butler, who's going to talk to us about our vulnerable road use management that we've added to our highway safety program. And as many of you know, we have had 2 fatalities within our own staff. So safety becomes even more important to us every day. But we also have had over 200 deaths on our highway this year. And so as we look at that, each one of those is very personal to us. And so it becomes a question of, is there anything out there that we could be doing more? Anything out there that we could be engaging on? And so we've had some really unique things that we've been able to leverage. And I know Commissioner Koppel, you attended the Timex event that we had in Grand Island. Every so often we get an opportunity to come together with our local law enforcement and first responder community. That's what the Timex is. It's anytime you see a crash on a highway, it shouldn't be the first time that crash is practiced and how we respond to it. And so we run through exercises to see what's the best way to respond to it, what's the safest way to respond to it, and the quickest way to make sure that those who could have been hurt or could be hurt if as a first responder are protected and taken care of as quickly as possible as in life-saving measures. And so this Timex is part of a larger effort to work with our local law enforcement and first responder community to make sure that the roadways are safe. As you may have seen in Omaha, Commissioner, we have some of those crash responding or crash incident responder areas. We've also greenlit and put back the motorist assist program, which is a great opportunity to highlight, I think, today. If you came in this morning, hopefully you didn't see a stalled vehicle on the road, but if you did, rest assured that there's going to be help on the way. So we've brought that service back. It was a volunteer service that we haven't had for over a year. And so to have that back in a full-time status with trained professionals is something that the department sees a lot of value in. And in terms of what it'll provide to our major metropolitan area, I think there's a lot of safety enhancements. So we're excited for those safety movements, as well as internally in our safety manual. And so continue to work on that. And for sure, please ask any questions on safety. We welcome them, or if you have ideas. The second area I wanted to talk about was the needs assessment. So Amy will get into a bit of what it all means, but the major takeaway was we've updated our needs assessment. So the dollars to projects and dollars to pavement preservation, what it's going to cost over 20 years to maintain and build the system that we've promised, those costs have gone up about 15% and $2 billion as it was estimated last year. So that isn't a one-year increase. It's just that over the last 3 years of overages and cost increases, we haven't adjusted those numbers for the inflation environment that we're currently operating in. And we felt it was necessary to bring attention to it with the legislature and with the governor's office so that they fully understood the operating environment that we're in right now. And so Amy will get in details of what that looks like for projects and when we're moving to them. And so we very much welcome that presentation. And one of the last thing I want to add in here, I guess, is the local support. We continue to work with our local assistance division, Jody Gibson, who's leading that, and our stakeholders to make sure that our locals are supported. You know, one of the areas that we see the most opportunity is discretionary grants. And there's quite a few areas that make it difficult, even for the department, to feel confident whenever you buy a lottery ticket, so to speak. And so we continue to work with the governor's office, the legislature, our stakeholders, and local to understand how we can more confidently pursue these discretionary grant opportunities from the local level as well as the state level. So more to come on that as we flesh out what the opportunity looks like, but it's something that we continue to invest staff resources in. So with that, Commissioner, I'll yield back anytime.
Thank you, Director. Is that better, Sarah?
Yeah, and I would like to add, Commissioner Leaf Green is listening in, so
Oh, great.
so you're aware.
Good morning, Commissioner Leafgreen. The next item on the agenda is the Vulnerable Road Users Assessment. That presentation is going to be made by Don Butler. Don?
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about something very near and dear to our heart, the safety of the traveling public in Nebraska. We're talking about a recent report that was published called the Nebraska Vulnerable Road User Assessment. I am Don Butler with the Nebraska DOT, Highway Safety Engineer. So the first question, what is a vulnerable road user? Really, it's anybody who walks, bikes, or rolls on or across Nebraska roadways. And this is important. This is encompassing all the travelers in our state. Oftentimes we think about vehicles, freight, but the people that walk and bike are important to consider as well. And in many cases, they're very vulnerable in that they don't have the steel cage around them protecting them. They make up 8% of fatalities, serious injuries. This is our strategic highway safety plan. In the last update 2 years ago, we included a new critical emphasis area specifically targeting non-motorists and looking at strategies to improve safety for them. With the overall goal of zero. Zero is the only acceptable number of fatalities on our roadways. I think everybody here is behind that goal. And really, we get there through shared responsibility, both road users and road stewards, the work that we're doing here every day to achieve zero fatalities together. So in this assessment, we dug deeper than we looked at in our strategic highway safety plan. We brought in new data, reached out to the public, talked about what we can do. Here's some trends. Nationally, 76% of pedestrian fatalities occur at night. So it's harder to see people, easier to get struck and killed. Other things we see demographically, we know that there is overrepresentation with African American and Native American populations getting struck and killed per capita. This chart, there's a lot here, but essentially the higher the bars, the more crashes that are occurring, more people getting struck. And as you go to the right, you'll be becoming more vulnerable. They're less likely to have a vehicle, more likely to be economically challenged, or be in a minority ethnic status. And so we can see very clearly that these people that are more vulnerable socially are also more vulnerably on our roadways. We also looked at land use. Traditionally, we just look at where the crash patterns are. We took a broader look and see where are the clusterings happening. So around transit stops, this makes sense. You got people alighting and going on to transit. Around parks, schools, and social services, particularly when they're directly adjacent to urban arterials. These multi-lane facilities with higher speeds, the chance of someone getting struck and killed is much higher. But that's just what we saw. We need to talk to the public. So we created a public survey. We had 563 responses. This is the most that we've got from a strategic highway safety plan survey. So wonderful responses, a really enthusiastic conversation. What we heard back was that there's a lack or disconnected sidewalk or trail network. I think we know that from moving around our community. Or what's there is in a poor condition, or maybe missing small segments. And so you can't connect even for short distances. And then as we hear a lot, poor driving behavior, speeding, blocking sidewalks, ramps, failing to yield to pedestrians. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And where are they going? People are traveling in these modes for good reason. Recreation is very, very popular, but also as you look down there for shopping and job location, people are going to work and they're going there for economic reasons. And so we need to make sure they're connected, just like all the other networks. So listening to the public, looking at the data, these are the results that we came up with. So we already had some strategies in our strategic highway safety plan. Lighting, markings, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, roundabouts, road diets, a lot of great ideas that are already there. This helped us understand we need to focus those existing strategies in higher socially vulnerable areas and around those high land use areas where we saw clustering, transit, schools, parks, and those urban corridors. And then we expanded on it. As we talked with the public, we got a whole list of ideas. These are the best practices that we saw around the nation and things that we've added to that tool set that we can move forward in these areas. So ideas like leading pedestrian interval, updating our pedestrian lighting standard to reduce those strikes at nighttime, as well as education and other enhancements that we can make. So really is a great conversation with the public, really great ideas. We learned a lot, and we're going to grow and expand our ability to save lives for these vulnerable travelers. Any questions?
Any questions, commissioners?
Thank you.
Hearing none, you get off easy this morning. Thank you. It's very informative. Appreciate it, Don. Let's move then to the next item on the agenda, which is the Timex event debrief. Michelle and Jessica, the two of you going to make the presentation? It's a little warmer in here than it was there, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. Thank you for having us today. My name is Michelle, and with me today is Jessica, and I'm here on behalf of NDOT's Operations Division, and we want to thank you for giving us the time today to discuss the Timex event, our TIM program and our Timex event that we recently held in Grand Island. So before we jump into the Timex event, I want to give you a little bit of history on what TIM actually is. TIM is a planned and coordinated multidisciplinary effort to detect, respond to, and clear traffic incidents and restore traffic flow as safe and quickly as possible. The TIM program currently consists of, next slide. Thank you. The TIM program currently consists of TIM groups located along the I-80 corridor. These groups consist of participants from all disciplines and meet quarterly to discuss best practices, special events, alternate routing, seasonal preparedness, and perform after-action reviews as necessary. We currently have 260 active agencies spanning all disciplines who participate in our TIM meetings. 89 stakeholder meetings have been held through September of this year, and we have performed 96 after-action reviews throughout the state and trained over 1,000 people in 2023. The vision of TIM is safer together. How do we accomplish that? We have 5 key strategies that we follow to becoming safer. The first strategy is creating a statewide safety culture. We work to establish solid relationships through stakeholder meetings. We perform mutual aid and association outreach and provide statewide resources and education. The team embraces diverse perspectives, thoughts, and leadership, and maintains thoughtful consideration of all disciplines' roles and responsibilities. Our second strategy is after-action reviews. TIM fosters a culture of continuous improvement through routine multidisciplinary incident after-action reviews focused on traffic operations. It also provides an opportunity to share national and statewide TIM best practices and establish statewide consistency. Our third strategy is being future-focused. Early and frequent collaboration helps reduce the risk to our first responders and motorists. It provides an opportunity to prepare for upcoming events and to manage transportation systems through work zones and provide thoughtful alternate routes. Our fourth strategy is efficient incident response. We work together to gain an understanding of our regional relationships and resources and how we can effectively use them. We work to create a unified approach to safe incident response while working collaboratively with a sense of purpose and urgency. And lastly, relationship building, maintaining open and honest communication and working as a unified team which confidently embraces a safety culture while on scene. Events such as the Timex event that Director Kramer referenced earlier helps us bring us closer to fulfilling our mission. And with that, I'll let Jessica talk about the day events. Oh, there we go. Whoop.
So I'm going to talk about the Timex event, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. So on Friday, November 3rd, in partnership with the State Patrol, NDOT held a Timex exercise at the Law Enforcement Training Center in Grand Island. We did have some assistance from our consultant HDR on this. They help us with our TIM program statewide. At this event, we had several individuals. There were 124 people that attended this event, from law enforcement, fire rescue personnel, towing recovery, communications, hazmat, public works, and these individuals were from all across the state. This gave them a multidisciplinary training opportunity to expose these responders to different aspects of a crash response and foster an environment to discuss best practices, lessons learned, and strategies for a cohesive response. Participants worked side by side through scenarios involving the livestock emergencies, hazmat spills, establishing traffic incident management areas, safe quick clearance strategies, expedited crash investigations, as well as air ambulance services. Each scenario incorporated key focuses on TIM fundamentals and terminology, incident command, interagency communications, and scene safety. The exercise was part of a statewide effort to improve TIM on our roadways. Effective traffic incident management keeps emergency responders, crash victims, and motorists safe. When crashes or disruptions occur, TIM practices reduce the duration and impacts of traffic incidents. Oh, wrong one. Of the 124 individuals that, there were 53 different agencies from across the state represented. 40 from city, county, and state transportation agencies, 30 from city, county, and state law enforcement agencies, 50 towing partners, 7 from medical EMS, 5 from fire, 4 emergency communications, 3 individuals from the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, 2 local health departments, 2 emergency managers, and 1 from the National Weather Service. Blending these individuals from different disciplines and having them work together helps establish those partnerships and relationships ahead of real-world incidents occurring. Our day kicked off with registration and a classroom kickoff, as well as a safety briefing by our State Patrol partners. This led into other classroom training that was held over lunch with how to request air care assistance. So our partners out of central Nebraska from Apollo and Air Care came in and talked about what they can provide to help with safe clearance and get those patients quickly to trauma centers. The outside events consisted of, the first one was establishing a TIM area. Some of the objectives for this area were to define the 4 components of a traffic incident management area, which includes an advanced warning area, a transition area, the activity area, which is where the incident space is and the buffer space to that incident, as well as the termination area. They identified basic temporary traffic control devices that all responder vehicles should have, which includes traffic cones and low light traffic control, such as electronic flares or the old fire type flares. Explain how to access alternate route or large scale traffic control devices and what should be on a traffic control trailer and how they can deploy one of those. The next area seen was expedited crash investigation and push-pull drag. The objectives of the push-pull drag scene was to understand and explain Nebraska's authority removal law and who has the authority to remove vehicles from the roadway. They identified target areas to engage push bars with crashed vehicles, explain the process to push a disabled vehicle from the roadway, as well as describing the differences in pushing a crashed car versus a disabled car. Expedited crash investigations explain the importance of working concurrently with the responders while handling any crash scene. For example, law enforcement can photograph the scene evidence while EMS tends to the patients, and tow can remove vehicles after they've been measured while the law enforcement is still measuring information on the roadway. They were to demonstrate communication between disciplines to coordinate the concurrent efforts while managing the crash scene, as well as identifying the 7 steps to successful quick clearance. The next scene, which according to our feedback from the attendees was our most popular scene, the livestock trailer crash. The objective of this scene was to assess a crash scene involving livestock and prepare a response that provides responder, public and animal safety. They discussed the resources that may be available to provide equipment for handling livestock in crashes. And this included partnerships with local farmers and ranchers, as well as veterinarians, and how to hook up livestock panels and things like that to keep not only the animals safe, but the public safe. They implemented components of initial scene size up, incident command, and detailed crash scene report and subsequent resources needed. The hazardous material spill, the objectives of this were to recognize signs and markings associated with hazardous materials, identify what the simulated hazardous material on this scenario was, utilize the emergency response guidebook to determine initial isolation distance and establish response priorities, identified additional needed resources and agencies to notify of spill, demonstrate the proper windshield size up of the scene, meaning Do it from a distance because you never know what's in that trailer. Demonstrate good communication, cooperation, and collaboration with additional responders and emergency communications.
Jessica, if I could give you a second to pause too. I know we had a hazardous material spill on the interstate this last year, and maybe you can go into a little bit of detail here, but as you've seen, each one of these was supposed to really be focused on a situation that our first responders and our districts face regularly, or at least annually, something that we want to encourage cooperation and coordination on. And so this was one where we hadn't had a hazardous spill in a while that was at this level. And finding someone who was able to essentially do the decontamination and restore the roadway to a safe traveling roadway was very difficult and took over 24 hours, if I'm correct. And so getting some of these contacts in place allows us to be a little bit quicker than next time, hopefully.
Yes, so in that situation, it was a 27-hour closure and there was some delay in getting like our NDEE partners notified, and usually the state patrol or the local incident commander does that. So we put some processes in place, at least on the DOT side, that when we know that there has been a hazardous material spill, our state operations center will contact NDEE, just so they're at least aware of that and follow up with the local response.
And we all know that disasters happen at the worst possible time.
Yes.
So it was one of those situations where the primary response was a capability that was not available to us. And so as you start to trick down the line, it was how do we make sure that we have that second, third, fourth person in line that we can call in case the first is already out on a scene.
Yeah,
So-
because, in that case, it was the
Yep.
third company that finally was able to come out and clean up that spill.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. And so with that, I want to thank Director Kramer, Deputy Director Jamshidi, along with Commissioners Koppel and Kindig for attending that training that day. If you guys have any additional comments, I know Director Kramer just said a few things that you want to share with the group, we'd open up.
Jessica, could I ask you to turn your slide presentation back to the slide that's entitled Partnership,
Yes.
please?
One more, yes.
Thank you. With that slide, Commissioner Kindig, would you like to make some comments as to your experience, your thoughts, your comments, your evaluation?
You know, it was all very impressive. One of the things that really made an impact on me was on the towing companies. Now, nobody can hear me. Was the towing companies and how educated they are and how they can handle a scene. I was really impressed with, we had, I think, 3 different companies that were there. And I was really impressed. And then one of the other things that really impressed me is when there is a crash, say for instance on the interstate, and how that can close down the interstate for hours. Some of the things that are being done now to shorten that time. And I think the average, I can't recall exactly, but I think the average was about 2.5 hours, and we've got that down to less than an hour in most cases now. And those are the things that really impressed me. But these were actually scenes where they were actual accidents that we went and took a look at, and they simulated them. And we had some real good information we could take away from there. And so I was real impressed. And I think, Dave, you were too, weren't you?
Yeah, it was very well done. Very well done, very informative. I would encourage anyone that didn't have an opportunity to participate, that when you have the next one, and I'm assuming you will, that it be publicized so that other individuals could attend. I was very impressed. The drone, they demonstrated the drone with respect to accident investigation and the reduction of time that it takes in order to do that, given the unconventional, traditional way of accident investigation. It was very well done, very informative. So thank you very much for making your presentation, both you, Michelle, and Jessica.
And I would just like to make one comment that I want to thank you for your time today and thank Director Kramer, Mo and Khalil for your support of our TIM program on a daily basis. And we wouldn't be successful without all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the needs assessment and expressway update. Amy?
All right, good morning, Commissioners, Director Kramer, everyone in the room and joining us online. My name is Amy Starr. I've been with NDOT since the mid-90s in a bunch of different capacities. Was able to start my career in roadway design for a bit and moved over to materials and research under Mo, where I got exposure to the research program and some of the local assistance challenges that we all work through. And then about 12 years ago, moved back over to the project delivery environment of the department under Deputy Director Khalil Jabber, and where I began leading the program management division. And so just a quick highlight of what that means. Program management division is responsible for managing hundreds of different categories of funding for construction that come to us from the state or the federal government. We're also responsible for helping to coordinate between our districts and divisions, all of the different business practices that we follow to get our projects from an idea to a let project. And then last but not least, we're also responsible for the civil rights program in the state, which helps us to make sure that we prevent discrimination and are inclusive of our low income and minority population, which also includes a lot of the folks that Dawn talked about earlier this morning, the vulnerable road users that use our system throughout the state every day. So today, when I'm here to talk about our three primary topics, I'm going to briefly discuss what Director Kramer highlighted earlier this morning for the needs assessment hearing that occurred earlier this week. And then I'm going to dive a bit deeper into our status of the expressway system. And last but not least, there are a few items that have been asked during previous Highway Commission meetings that I'm going to provide some updates on capital improvement plans that we have moving forward. Thanks, Sarah. No, thank you. So first up, the 2023 needs assessment. As Director Kramer mentioned earlier, we are predicting about a $2.2 billion increase compared to what we had predicted last year. It's about a 15% increase compared to what our assessment was last year. We had been experiencing some of these increases in costs and unit prices and inflation over the course of the last couple of years, but we were optimistic maybe it was a temporary increase. We're not quite so optimistic anymore. We feel like it's time to really readjust our projections and reflect what we've been experiencing pretty consistently for a while now. So that is what drove this change in what we're predicting we'll need to do in order to keep our roads in good condition and continue modernizing them where we need to.
Morning. It's on mute.
Move backwards. How about I point to you, Sarah? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. All right, so this slide highlights the three primary categories that we use to comprise our needs assessment. First off, our asset preservation category makes up 9.7 billion of that 16.7 billion needs assessment. That's really about 60% of our investment. And it is what we do to make roads and bridges, keep them in good shape. This isn't really making big changes, it's just keeping them in good driving condition. The next category is our system modernization and operations segment, 2.4 billion anticipated investment there. It's about 15% of our needs. And this is what we do to help modernize the system in order to meet new constraints and new criteria that hadn't been addressed in previous projects. The third category is where we had the biggest increase since last year. We had about a 30% increase. We're expecting about $4.6 billion worth of investment. That captures capital improvement projects that represent the types of projects where we're building something new, something that isn't there before. We're either building a new alignment or adding new capacity to fulfill the needs of our operating system. So now I'm going to shift a bit to the expressway system update. And just to kind of make sure everybody's kind of all on the same page, who may not be familiar, the expressway system was established by the state legislature in 1988. And fundamentally, the purpose of it was to establish corridors to get communities connected to the interstate. These types of projects are a little bit of a different animal. They take longer than the asset preservation projects or even the system modernization projects. These involve a lot of public involvement. They involve a lot of impact to folks who live around those projects. And there are a lot of differing opinions of what we should do in each of these projects. And so the process to get from a planning, it's an idea, it's something that we're going to commit to actually bidding for a contract can take 5 to 11 years. This next slide is a quick snapshot of our current status. And what you can see here, yellow indicates projects that are complete. That's the portions of the expressway where we have the 4 lanes that had been established as a priority. The green segments are projects that are under construction or contract right now. Red are projects that we are in the process of designing and determining what we'll be building and exactly where those things will occur. And blue is 1 corridor remaining where we are in the planning process that usually takes about a year before we get into more detailed preliminary design work. So the next slide is not going to change a ton from one topic to the other, but on the left-hand side is a Gantt chart that you have in the BNA TIA report that you can refer to in the future. But this highlights what we think our new updated estimates are for these corridors, what our best projection for when we think we'll be able to complete design and get to construction. But this projection is also does not reflect certain constraints that we will have a difficult time predicting, and we will adjust if we experience. Those types of things include a resource agency staffing constraints. Sorry, I need a little bit more coffee this morning, clearly. And then potential significant cost escalation that exceeds what we've experienced so far. Future inflation rates. We've got some assumptions that have historically been meaningful, but they may need to be adjusted based on how we experience the next few years. Contractor capacity and material shortages are also things that are influence how long it can take for a project to be constructed. And then extreme weather conditions. We cannot not mention those things ever since we had the experience of 2019 where we had a polar vortex and flooding that really affected us statewide and required a lot of additional attention. All right, so for the remainder of this portion of our presentation, I'm going to go through 1 corridor at a time from top to bottom of this Gantt chart and just quickly hit the highlights that you might be interested in. So the first project listed is the Highway 77 Lincoln West Bypass. This project is in preliminary design steps and it is being developed federally eligible. What that means is once we've gotten to further level of design, it is one that we could consider pursuing some of the discretionary grants that could supplement existing funding. We're expecting a public meeting in early 2024 to discuss the range of options that might be considered at these locations to fulfill the mission of the project. This is the project that I believe in September, Steve McCullough went into a lot more detail with the Highway Commission. And so our goal is to anticipate construction in 25 to 26. Next up is the Highway 275 segment. This is best described kind of in 3 phases. The first one, Scribner to West Point, has been under construction. Folks are driving on that, but there is still some construction occurring through 2024. The next segment, Norfolk to Wisner, is being developed federally eligible. And we are going to continue to seek competitive grants to help supplement funding for that. We'll be going out very soon for the public hearing using FHWA signed draft EA. And the public comment period is anticipated to close January 22nd. We're currently anticipating construction to be eligible to begin 2025 through 2027. And last but not least, the final segment of that corridor is the Wisner to West Point section. It is in design, but will not be developed federally eligible. And we are anticipating to prepare for construction from 2026 to 2029. The next piece, Murray to Plattsmouth, Highway 75, is under construction. Main line is being driven on now, but the construction won't be complete until 2024. And then Highway 75 from Nebraska City to Murray is in the preliminary planning phases. We're anticipating this to be a 2+2 strategy, which means we think the existing 2 lanes are in good enough shape. Their composition, their current status, current condition and composition lend themselves to be able to use the existing 2 lanes and then build on 2 more to accomplish the expansion. We expect that this one would likely start quite a bit later in the 2033 to 2036 range. Next up, the Highway 77 Wahoo to Fremont corridor. It is in design. It is not being developed federally eligible either. This one, we anticipate 4 new lanes will need to be constructed. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is the lead environmental assessment agency on this one because it's not being developed federally eligible. We expect construction between 27 and 2031. However, you will see some construction this year in this area. We're building a roundabout, and we are doing some preservation work on the highway to keep the driveway surface in good condition until the 4 laning comes through. The Highway 30 North Bend to Fremont corridor is under open to traffic, but the construction will continue through 2024. Highway 81 York to Columbus was discussed a little bit earlier. This corridor is in preliminary phases of design. It is being developed federally eligible, and we expect that a 2+2 strategy will be appropriate for this segment as well. Construction projected to begin 2029 through 2034. And then here are a list of projects that have come up in Highway Commission meetings within the last year, and wanted to give you a quick highlight of where those projects are. The Newberry interchange modification near North Platte, that includes some 4-lane construction on Highway 30. That is a project that is selected. Planning is in progress for that. The Highway 26 2+2 4-lane expansion from Minnetonka to Highway 385. That project is also selected for funding, and design is in progress. The Highway 385 Super 2 passing lanes from Alliance to Chadron. This is a strategy where we provide passing opportunities at intervals along that corridor. That is selected, and the planning is in progress for that as well. But however, the 385 Super 2 passing lanes from Chadron to South Dakota that was brought up, that has not been selected at this point. So it is not currently in any active level of planning or design. The Highway 83 Super 2 passing lanes from McCook to North Platte was selected for BNAT, and we've made a lot of progress on that corridor. We're currently advertising one of the segments for construction, and construction is anticipated to begin in 2024 for the Lake Maloney South segment. And the final project to complete that corridor of Super 2 is anticipated to begin construction in 25. That's the Wellfleet South segment. And so once that project is under construction, this corridor will be of Super 2 passing opportunities will be complete. The last segment that's been discussed from McCook to Kansas has not been selected and is not programmed. And so that one we are not working on right now. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions?
The Highway 30 from Grand Island to Columbus, that's not on the agenda there. We're talking about a Super 2. has there been any talk about putting this on the agenda for a project? Thought we had that set to do in the future.
So I believe that one was selected for design. We have not begun it's not programmed quite yet. And so we're not actively working on that project, but it was selected for design efforts in the 2016 prioritization process. And so this, I did not go through all of the projects. There is a status of all of those projects in the BNA TIA
Yeah.
report for reference.
Yeah. And the other one that concerns me is from Norfolk to Yankton. I have the contention that when we eventually get the expressway from York to Columbus completed, if we would have from Norfolk to Yankton, even if it's a Super 2, you're going to divert a lot of truck traffic. They're headed north that when they get to York, head up to Omaha to I-29 and keep going. Once you get to Yankton, you can take divided highway all the way over to I-29 to Vermillion. And I just think if you build it, they'll come. And I really see that having an impact on a lot of transportation. I think it'll take a lot more than we actually think off of going into Lincoln and Omaha. And I also think the trucks coming from Grand Island that take Highway 30, I think they'll take I-80 over to 81 and stay on that divided highway as long as they can. So I just think those are two projects that are really needed. So anyway.
No, we appreciate that, Commissioner. Several of these types of projects have come up, especially with the legislature, and just understanding as we work through informing them on what some of the first things that Amy went into with cost increases mean for projects that are of importance within their districts. I would say, as a director, the biggest concern I have right now is we have a lot of needs across the state and promises that have already been made. And right now, we're struggling to honor the promises that were made in 1988 to finish the expressway system. Fiscal constraints are significant in doing that. And we are committed to, as Amy showed you, there are several projects who have jumped up into the programming place or the design phase just because of their impact to their regional economies. And so we continue to prioritize those projects as they move up. But as a whole, our state's mentality is not in a build it if they will come environment. We don't have the resources to do that. We are very much a reactive state for transportation. And so, moving forward into a build it if you come strategy would be a heavy lift in the billions of dollars to move those strategies forward. We're very much looking at a reactive environment to businesses and movement that have happened. And if you look at Newberry, we're still, 7 years out from the full delivery of that project, and Sustainable Beef will be up and running in the next 2 years. And so we are very conscious of that, and we try to move projects up. But as Amy said, if you have a project that is developed with federal funds, you could be looking at anywhere from 3 to 7 to 11 years. And so not that we don't want to see some of these projects move forward. The realisticness of where we are is important to understand for the commission of when we talk about a program that is about anywhere from $650 to $750 million. And our average needs are right now, if you break it down based on what Amy said, over $850 million. What we can get to is very much determined by our fiscal environment.
Any other questions or comments?
Two things. First of all, on your Highway 83, where you say it's going to be done in 2025, you're leaving out at least 2, if not 3 projects to make that corridor a full Super 2.
It will begin in 2025, but
There's multiple additional projects from what you have listed, just so you know that it's in your programming. The second comment I wanted to make is, the Lincoln West bypass is moving forward, and you're going to be spending an awful lot of money to make that a true expressway. And we started out talking today and have thus about these other expressways that we're still going to be going through towns, and they're not true expressways. And I just find that kind of ironic that, you know, the Lincoln West bypass needs to happen with the traffic. I get that, but we're still not making the rest of these expressways true expressways when we build them. I just find that kind of ironic and just wanted to bring that up again to the department, so.
I'll stay here, or do you need me to go there?
Probably go to the mic and introduce yourself, so for those that are viewing this online.
Good morning, Khalil Jabber, Deputy Director for Engineering. Just to make sure that we're on the same page. The Lincoln South Beltway was designed and operated right now as a freeway system by standards. And so we recognized a long time ago that we have to convert Highway 77 to a freeway standard. And so that's really the effort, Commissioner, why we're doing this, because we are now shifting so many, over 75 to 80% of our trucks off now what we're called parkways to the Lincoln South Beltway. And our level of service on Highway 77, because of that shift, because of those signals that we have at those locations, has broken down a little bit, and that's where, you know, the agency is really focusing, trying to convert that to freeway. We never really disagreed with the expressway, but the expressway definition depends on what country you're in and what state you're in and what location you're in. As Director Kramer emphasized, we continue to have a lot of problems with the cost, but also the public input that we receive. And while we are saying this is not necessarily avoidable in the future, some of our design actually is, you know, strategically put from a geometry perspective to come and fit in a bypass. A good example of that is what we've done around, you know, West Point. And so, you know, we're saying we got to get ourselves moving to trying to complete the 4-lane, the expressway system, as Amy was indicating, with some of those missing segments. And the only way we can get there with some of those is not to invest a lot in those bypasses at this point. We are, however, addressing all the safety concerns through some of these communities, whether it's a 4-lane or 3-lane. We're trying to modify what we got in there so it operates at a higher level and a safe level until someday where we are sitting on a good, you know, funding mechanism to where we can execute that and complete it. So I just wanted us as an agency to be again on the record that we're not disagreeing with your comment, we're not disagreeing with expressway definition, but rather we're trying to be, you know, a little bit more practical in our approach, how we can get to finish the 600 miles, you know, and not invest so much into those bypasses and continue to delay the expressway 10 and 15 and 20 years and 30 years down the road. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Amy, thank you very much. Very informative. Next item on the agenda is the State Rec Road Program and Certification for Garfield and Luke counties. Jody?
Good morning. My name is Jody Gibson, and I am with the Local Assistance Division. And before I jump into what my presentation is really about and what I need from you guys today, I just want to give you a little background about what the Local Assistance Division is. We're the newest division that is created in the department. We really focus on, we have 4 sections, really. They're broken up into what we call liaison services. That's the group that manages the Board of Classification and Standards and the Board of Examiners, and all of the 1- and 5-year plan certification and financial reports that come in from our local agencies all run through that area, including the highway allocations and the incentive program with highway superintendents. So that is the liaison services. And we have our transit center. That is a group that manages federal FTA dollars that go out to our transit systems throughout Nebraska. There's funding to offset those costs that it takes to run those transit systems, as well as providing vehicles for those systems to help with their mobility in Nebraska. Third section is our rail section. That really deals with the coordination that we have with our railroads when construction projects when we are impacting the railroad with our construction projects. That there's a lot of pieces that go into that with getting easements and construction maintenance agreements in place. And then last but not least is our local project section, which handles all of the federal funds that go to our local agency that and as well as what Dr. Kramer mentioned earlier about discretionary grants, as well as a pot of funds that aren't federal, that are state rec road funds, which is why I'm here to talk to you today.
And Jody, before you get started, for those of you looking for the documents I sent you, they're in the second packet on your right.
And I apologize, it sounds like we have a lot for you to look through, but I am going to reference many of those documents throughout the presentation, just for your knowledge, and as we walk through it. Got it. So for the presentation today, I'm just going to walk through the statutes that govern the State Rec Road program. There is basically three main statutes that makes this that puts that program out there, as well as how we manage the program. And then also I'm going to get into how we coordinate with the Nebraska Game and Parks annually on the program. And then last but not least, why we're here today to talk about a specific project that is being funded with state rec road funds, which we need your approval on. So in your handout, I actually gave you, I think, the actual statutes for all of the state rec roads. And I kind of broke them into what I would call areas to make it a little bit easier. The first one really talks about, in my opinion, which is 1390, the authority. Basically, this statute really puts that funds should be expended by NDOT with the approval of the governor and for the construction and maintenance of dustless surfaces. Funds for these roads are really given to provide direct access or immediate access to state parks, state rec areas, other recreational or historical areas. The second part of 1390 talks about funding. And so the funds for this, money for this funds is transferred by the state treasurer on the first day of each month to NDOT, which equates to about $4 million of new funds every year that comes into the program. There is kind of a weird funding piece in that statute that on the first of each month, if that fund balance is above $14 million, the legislature can transfer the amount over the $14 million to the state park cash revolving fund from the state, our state rec road program. We watch that very closely to make sure that we do not lose any funding, because the needs are much more than we can afford in our program. Right now, our current balance is sitting just over $10 million. Sorry, I think you can go to the next slide. I'm sorry, I didn't. And I think one more, maybe two more. Sorry. The next part of the statutes I would talk about is the designation and eligibility of state rec roads. So eligibility of state rec roads is determined by the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, and they send it to us to be certified. Once a road is recommended for designation by Nebraska Game and Parks for state rec road funding, the State Highway Commission then must recommend or approve that the road not be incorporated into the state highway system, which is why I am here today. And then last, if a road is not incorporated into the state highway system, NDOT and the county will enter into a maintenance agreement for future maintenance that will be handled on that roadway. So also in your packet, you should have last year's 2023 submittal of the annual program that goes to the governor and the legislature each year. And in that annual submittal, what it is made up of is the one-year program, the programs that we plan to deliver in the following year, kind of a 5-year program, the certified Rec Road Construction Plan, which that is the long list of needs that the Game and Parks plans to wants to build. The financial statement of the balances and obligations that we have for the program, and then the list of projects that we have been working on in the past 3 years that have been under construction. That then is filed to the legislature January 1st of each year. Sarah, next slide. So just to break down our programming timeline and how we manage the program, about September 1 of each year, we start gathering all the data on projects and budgets and where we are. We put that together. We meet with Nebraska Game and Parks, that first meeting to kind of discuss the 1-year program and the 5-year program. By October, Game and Parks gives us their final determination of eligible projects they want for the coming year and in the 5-year program. And then this would not happen every year, but because we are asking that there be a new road designated as a state rec road fund, or designated state rec road, that we are here today to talk to you about that. After we walk out of here today, I will submit our program to Director Kramer, who will then meet with the governor, get her approval, and then we submit it January 1st. Okay, so back to why we're here today. As this slide that you saw earlier, we really we want to present to you the project that we would like to have added as a state rec road. And again, we need some action from you today. So Sarah, do you want to go to the next slide? So as I mentioned earlier, I am here because the Game and Parks has put the Calamus Rec Road project on the 1-year plan. This has not been previously a state rec road. We are designating, they've requested that this now be designated as a state rec road. Next slide, Sarah. Just to give you kind of an overview of the project, this is a picture of the Calamus Reservoir. The pinkish reddish colored line is Garfield County's jurisdiction, and then the yellow is Loup County's jurisdiction. Next slide. So the improvements to this project is approximately 11.7 miles long, and they're milling and resurfacing the roadway. There are 8 parking areas within the park that they are going to resurface. Along with that, when we were developing this project, we knew that there was some existing guardrail issues that we had out there, and we thought it would be a good opportunity to take it to our highway safety to see if we could get funding for upgrade of that guardrail. So that got added to the project. The project was let in October of this year. The low bid was awarded to Paulson for $11.7 million. This is a little unique because we have many different funding sources on this. Not only do we have state rec road funds, but we have the HSIP funds to help pay for that guardrail. And then there's some federal land funds that were awarded to Game and Parks for the project. So all in all, Loup County also has responsibility for a few pieces of this project. For the actual roadway work, Game and Parks was splitting that and paying 50% of those costs. And then of the guardrail, they were that funding split is 90% federal, 10% to the local. So you can just see those costs to Loup and Garfield County. Next slide. So just to kind of go over some information for you to help you guys make your decision today. NDOT is not aware of any state rec road where after the project was complete that the paved road became part of the state highway system. Loup County and Garfield County have agreed or signed maintenance and program agreements. I also believe that was sent to you this last week at one copy. I think we have a Garfield's Loup. We had to wait for their board meeting, but that should be in your packet. Neither county is requesting the segment of the roadway put on the highway system. And our internal policy in the past has always been that once a project, we use state funding or state rec road funding on a project, that it always continues to be the jurisdiction of the county. And one actual positive for becoming state rec roads that there is additional future state rec road funding that is available to both Garfield and county for future maintenance work that they need to do on the roadway segments. So I will end with our formal request to you today. NDOT and Nebraska Game and Parks is recommending today that this roadway not be added to the state highway system. We are here today to ask for you to take formal action on your recommendation. And we have provided to you a resolution for you to carry out your duties based on the statute requirements. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
The copy of the resolution's in your packet. Should have a draft watermark across it. You guys want to take a look at that?
I have some, and I'm sorry, my original speaker is not operating, so if I need to move and address it differently, let me know. But I have 2 or 3 questions. I also want to go on record as saying that in my 24, 25, 23 years, whatever it is, I've been on the commission, I probably received more calls on this from people outside of my district than any other project. So, but what I would like, there's a couple things I'd like to know here is, first of all, we're designating this a state recreation road. How many recreation facilities, campgrounds, whatever it may be, is this road actually facilitating?
Well, there's 8 actual campgrounds, two campgrounds with 8.
And then there shows. South side.
But 8 camping areas.
There's 8 camp, did I hear that correct? 8 campsites that?
No, park.
You're talking 60 some sites for camping on the south side of the lake.
60? Okay.
But this program is inside the parking areas for 8. What this fund is going for 8 different areas.
I apologize. I must not have read it correctly. We are doing 11.8 miles of road, correct?
Correct, but there's some work inside the park and outside of the park too.
So we're actually building state camp facilities or access, hard surfacing or campsites. Is that correct?
Resurfacing.
Resurfacing.
Yes, not building new, resurfacing.
Okay, then how much is that relative to the total cost of the whole project?
I don't know if we have that broke down. I would tell you for the actual roadway, you can see, if you look back at this, so the pink part that is Garfield County.
Right.
Here, let me go back to I can give you very rough estimates. I don't have that specifically, the numbers. We're paying 50%, or the state record fund is paying 50% of those costs on that piece. So I'm gonna guess, if you take her out the guardrail and all that kind of stuff, again, we can get you those numbers, I just don't have that. The Garfield piece is probably, I don't know, Paul, maybe 800,000 for that piece. That's 50-50. The Loop County piece, that segment on the yellow line, there's a segment in there of that Game and Parks is paying 100% of that dollar amount. So there's probably the last how much? 1 mile that is Loop County, where they're having to pay 50% of that 1 mile segment.
Let me ask this question. Maybe we can clarify something. The action that you're asking the commission to take today would in effect authorize Game and Parks and other governmental agencies such as the county of Loop and the other county to utilize the funds to do this project and would not involve NDOT funding, correct?
Yeah, there is no NDOT funding on this project at all.
You just are asking for the resolution from the commission in order to permit the other agencies or governmental entities to proceed with the project as they're proposing it.
Sorry.
Sure. You can introduce us.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Schroeder, the Chief Counsel for the Nebraska Department of Transportation. In order to answer your question, years ago, the legislature provided that if you funded a state rec road project, it would automatically be put on the state highway system unless the Highway Commission said no. And so from NDOT's viewpoint, it was backward. But the context is in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we were trying to define what was the state highway system, what should be on the state's system, what should be on the counties. And so there were lots of questions about what is the state highway system. So in this instance, we have kind of an anachronism in the statute that says that to make this road eligible for these funds, we have to designate it as a state rec road. But NDOT does not believe this road would meet the typical requirements for a major arterial to put it on the state highway system. Let me give you just one example. No place that I'm aware of on the state highway system where you have two state highways parallel to each other 3 miles apart. So there is a state highway on the north side of Calamus that provides for the statewide traffic. The south side is more internal access to the recreational facilities. And so it's NDOT's opinion that it should not go on the state highway system, and we need your action to make that happen.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'm still confused. If you say there's no department funds involved in this, where did those funds come from that are being?
There are funds that get deposited to NDOT.
But it comes from.
Right, it is not NDOT's funding. It's dedicated funds that come to use for state rec road funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and you can see you can see the statute 1390 is where that funding comes from, where it's mentioned.
Khalil Jabber, Deputy Director for Engineering. We receive some funds that is a pass-through, Commissioner. Sometimes we loosely say it's an NDOT funds. So transit is a good example. Rec Road is another example. We don't sometimes in our lingo say it is NDOT funds. We cannot go and put it on a state highway system. But the fact is, technically is our fund. It comes to us and we disperse based on the designation of the program. So I think, to your point, these funds are for a specific purpose. I can't go put it on the interstate, on a viaduct or anything. So that's the first piece. And the second piece to the original question, when we work with these counties on these locations, there's some certain things that are part of the design. We analyze with them what is eligible under the state rec road, what's eligible under the HSIP for safety, which is eligible on sometimes the federal lands. And so it's not strange to us to see a project that has 6 to 7 sources of funding. We try to stitch all this together to maximize the benefit for the counties. They've been after this for a long time. And you remember, in 86, what we've done, this is when we designated and the Highway Commission was part of that and the Board of Classification issued that. And then we converted that North Loop into a state highway system. But the same commission in 1986 dictated that South Loop is no longer or should not be on the state. Now it's coming back, the agreements is there, and all we want the action from you is because the statute require that we get you, here's our recommendation. You gotta send that recommendation to the governor that says you actually agree with that and you deny it and it should not get on the state system. That's the action that we're asking. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions by the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if you will, I would make a motion that we adopt resolution 2023-1 stating that the Nebraska Highway Commission agrees with the recommendation of NDOT that the subject roadway will not be added to the state highway system after the completion of the state rec road funded project.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Okay.
Jeff, since you've introduced yourself, do you want us to read the complete resolution, or are you comfortable with it being identified by resolution number?
I'll read the resolution.
Thanks.
Resolution 2023-1, whereas the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission has authority to designate certain recreation area, interior service roads, and exterior access roads as eligible for roadway surfacing or resurfacing projects with state recreation road funding under Nebraska statute section 39-1390. Whereas Nebraska Game and Parks has designated a route as eligible for SRR funding, and the Nebraska Department of Transportation has statutory authority to design and construct such roadway. Whereas the designated route is an existing paved county road beginning in Garfield County, just east of the Virginia Smith Dam at the Calamus Reservoir, and continuing west across the top of the dam and into Loop County for a couple miles. Whereas, although the designated route is eligible for SRR funding, NDOT believes the roadway would not meet the requirements of a major arterial, and as such, NDOT recommends the roadway not be added to the state highway system after the project. Whereas section 39-1390 requires state highway commission action when NDOT recommends that a roadway eligible for SRR funding should not be added to the state highway system. Whereas NDOT hereby requests a formal resolution of the State Highway Commission agreeing with the recommendation of NDOT that the subject roadway will not be added to the state highway system after completion of the SRR funded project. Whereas the State Highway Commission has authority under Nebraska statute 39-1390 to make this determination. Therefore, be it resolved in accordance with the statute 39-1390, the Nebraska State Highway Commission hereby agrees with the recommendation of NDOT and determines that the roadway described above shall not be added to the state highway system after completion of the proposed SRR project. I believe I had a motion from Commissioner Hawks and a second from Commissioner Wolford. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
After having read the resolution, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Sarah, will you call the question?
Yes. Commissioner Koppel.
Yes.
Commissioner Fagerland.
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes.
Commissioner Mello.
Yes.
Commissioner Hawks.
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig.
Yes.
Commissioner Wolford.
Yes.
Okay. And I will have you sign that resolution after the meeting before all of you leave, please.
Would you change it?
All right, thank you very much. That was an interesting discussion. The next item on the agenda. Jody, thank you for your presentation. Did she leave out? All right, there you are. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the highway naming request, US 30 Wood River. Ryan, if I butcher the pronunciation, I apologize. Is it Wolatsik? Wadalevich. Okay, thank you.
Hold up just a moment.
See it? All right. No, that's good right there. Very good. All right. Well, it's truly an honor and a privilege to be presenting in front of you this morning on behalf of the highway naming request that is underneath review. Not working.
There you go.
All right, you can click it like 7 times. There you go. My name is Ryan Wadalevich. I promise that's my last name. I didn't make it up. It's just a W with a bunch of letters after it. I am the son of Melissa and the late Kenny Wadalevich. I am originally from Wood River, but I currently reside in Omaha. I recently graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education and Special Education from UNK, and I'm currently earning my Master's of Science in Educational Leadership at Northwest Missouri State University to become a school administrator. I am currently a 5th grade teacher in Omaha Public Schools. I know, 5th grade. It's great. All right, go ahead, Sarah. You can click it 5 times there. I'm going to keep this presentation brief this morning and just cover the who, what, when, why, and where on regards to my highway naming request. Go ahead, sir. On the left, you'll see the family of Captain Kenny. Mom, you owe me $5. Okay, you'll see the family of Captain Kenny Wadalevich, and on the right, you'll see the family of Captain Bobby Hemiger. Both of these two men were members of Wood River's Volunteer Fire Department. In the early morning hours of February 14th, 2004, Valentine's Day, nonetheless, these two firefighters responded to their last call. Kenny and Bobby were performing a search and rescue to find an elderly woman in her burning home, when suddenly the roof collapsed, trapping both of these two men inside. These two men were taken to the local hospital, where Bobby died the following day and Kenny died 3 days later. Go ahead. Because of Kenny and Bobby's heroism and their willingness to put their life on the line for those in need, they have been honored at the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial on the grounds of the National Emergency Training Center in Emmitsburg, Maryland. In addition, these two heroes have been recognized as a national firefighter fatality through the United States Fire Administration. Go ahead. While Nebraska averages 1 or less firefighter line of duty deaths a year, the past few years have been related to health issues or COVID-19. It is quite rare to have 2 firefighters die in the same state back to back, let alone the same city, let alone the same department, let alone the same fire. Go ahead, sir. Upon the approval of the Board of Commissioners today, the families of Captain Kenny Wadalevich and Captain Bobby Hemiger would like to host a sign unveiling on the 20th anniversary of the tragic death of these two heroes. Go ahead. That was a little small. But after reviewing the policy document located on the Nebraska Department of Transportation's website, the criteria outlined in section 3, I believe, is best met with this application. The persons have been deceased for 20 years this February. Both Kenny and Bobby were born and raised in Nebraska, and they have lived their whole entire lives here. Their contribution to society was their voluntarily acts to put their life on the line for others. Subpoint C describes that that person must be widely recognized across the entire state of Nebraska. While Kenny and Bobby's tragic accident made headlines in all of the Nebraska newspapers for weeks, their funerals were held together with nearly 2,000 people in attendance and thousands watching at home on live television. Go ahead. In the criteria outlined in 2E, I see that is described, there is only 1 named highway segment per person. However, upon the discussion with the Board of Commissioners this morning, I hope that we could come to a consensus and allow both of these two men to have a highway named in their memory. They went in together and they left us together. Section 2F describes that many have given their life in service to this country and it's not feasible to honor them all. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. But when I first read this, the specifics of a quote fallen hero are not described. I interpreted this section F as a section referring to those brave men and women who have served our country in the armed forces. Go ahead. The families of Kenny Wadalevich and Bobby Hemiger have requested that the highway naming would run through the city of Wood River. The yellow line describes where that proposed highway naming would be issued on Highway 30, starting at Berwick Road on the east and ending at Cottonwood Street on the west. The families chose Berwick Road to start, as that is the road of the cemetery in which these two men are laid to rest. And we chose Cottonwood Street, as that is the end of city limits. Go ahead. To put this vision into a reality, I have created this image of what it could look like with both of these two fallen heroes listed. I understand that this may be an odd highway naming request. However, through the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, I have been able to connect with other young adults like myself who have lost their father in the line of duty. Through the past 2 decades, their fathers have died in much larger and smaller cities than Wood River and much larger and smaller states than Nebraska. Go ahead, Sarah. And their Highway Board of Commissioners have approved with flying colors highways, interstates, and bridges after their fallen hero. So I can only hope that Nebraska can honor and remember my father and Bobby Hemiger for a lifetime, so they are never forgotten. Thanks. Any questions from the board?
Thank you, Ryan. Comments, questions, commissioners?
I think I sent it to Sarah. There's the two resolutions. One is from the city of whatever, and the other one is from the city of, or the county of, or the Hall County. And both of them have approved it through their last board meeting.
Is the sign you are proposing what you put up there, or is it just going to be the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway?
If it could be what I had on there with the names on it, that's what we anticipate.
There we go.
There it is. And the stretch of from Berwick Road to Cottonwood Street is about less than a mile and a half, give or take.
For all of you that want to reference it, the state highway, or the naming state highway policy is in your packet along with the application that Ryan submitted as well.
Well, I look at this and the resolution says we're going to name it the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway, and that is totally within our policy. We've done that others with Heroes Highway and Veterans Highways. And
The resolution was drafted based off our last conversation of the modification, which would be the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway.
right.
Yes.
So to me, that meets it. Now, maybe putting the names on the sign is a different issue that we've been down that road before. How you name the sign, but that's getting in a gray area by our policy is what I see. But the resolution that I have before me that says we're doing it in the honor of these two men, and it's called the Fallen Memorial Highway, Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway, does meet our policy. So
And Sarah, can you advance the one next slide? And those, like I said, those are just the top right one is from the state of Oregon that just passed about 3 weeks ago. The one off to the left, the Christopher Brown, is from Illinois that passed last fall. And then the Tainsclay one is from Missouri, which is a 7-mile bridge that got passed 2 weeks ago. Nebraska does not have a memorial for any fallen firefighters in Nebraska, but there is memorials for all fallen police officers in Grand Island at the State Fair. And what I said, with averaging 1 or less on-duty deaths a year, we just honor and remember. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see where we have in the past approved 2 names on with Jerome and Betty Warner memorial. So those were 2 names on one.
Mm-hmm. I did see that. Yep. Like Commissioner said, there is a little bit of gray area in between, and it wasn't stated. It's not stated clearly, so that's why I'm here today.
Any other comments, questions?
Since this was my father's death about 20 years ago, was one of the biggest firefighter line of duty deaths in the Midwest, Nebraska, especially the Nebraska Serious Injury and Line of Duty Response Team. Because of my dad's accident, $10, Mom. My mom and the other widow has purchased a fallen firefighter trailer that holds axes and all the funeral equipment for future line of duty deaths in Nebraska. And that trailer is housed in the Wood River Fire Station. It's been used several times throughout the past 20 years. So there is now a response team in Nebraska because of these two deaths.
Yeah. Thanks. Any other comments, questions, discussion?
I do want to add, Greg is correct. Commissioner Wolford, apologies, is correct. The resolution was drafted off the last conversation we had, so it is the modification. So it does not include a dedication on the sign. It would just be Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway. If we do want to add a dedication, we would have to just revise the statute or the resolution.
Sarah, am I correct? Is the sign, is that purchased through the family? The family would purchase, that's what I thought. So it would cost the state nothing, just the board's approval.
Hearing no further discussion, the chair would ask for a motion.
Before I do this, could I just clarify one more thing? There's concerns that this meets the criteria because of the naming of individuals. Am I understanding this right?
Commissioner Wolford, do you want to point out the section of the statute that you're referencing?
That's right. And I'm of the opinion, this may be a little, DOT may go crazy with this, but I'm okay with naming this the Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway, and whatever sign they put up in Wood River, you guys put up the sign. But I don't think we can name it. So it's listed as far as DOT is concerned, Fallen Firefighters Memorial Highway, just as the resolution states. And if they want to put up a different sign, I'm perfectly fine with that personally. But I say DOT may think that's splitting a baby or something, but.
Is there a criteria through the DOT that you can't have a name on a sign? Does that say it anywhere?
You're buying the sign, so put up the sign you want.
One of the things that, in fact, is pretty close to where I live. I live in Kennesaw, so I'm pretty familiar with what happened and so forth. And I'm completely for what we're talking about here. But I did have somebody call me and talk to me, and they thought it would be an alternative if where you have the pedestrian bridge in Wood River going across Highway 30, if the town of Wood River would dedicate that as a memorial bridge. And maybe the names go there and so forth. So I'm just kicking that out for something to think about. But I know exactly where you're coming from. We have volunteer fire department in Kennesaw, and I mean, without the volunteer fire departments in most of Nebraska, we'd be lost. So.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Khalil. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I understand the intent here. I do know we have a couple constraints within the MUCTD standards and what we put up for signs. Khalil, do you have any specifics you want to talk about there?
I think just, we know there's some certain guidance that we need to work with, but I will just say that as a DOT, we have no objection to the suggestions. We will look for the commissioner. If you approve this forward, consistent with the policy, we'll make it work. We'll work with Ryan and Wood River and see if we can get something that could fit this together. Thank you.
Okay, based on that, I move that we approve resolution number 2023-2.
Second.
-2 as written.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Comments, questions?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We're not done yet.
Oh.
Sarah, I would ask you to read the resolution.
Resolution number 2023-2, naming of fallen firefighters in Memorial Highway. Whereas according to the Department of Transportation Operating Instructions 60-1, the Nebraska State Highway Commission is authorized to consider requests for the naming of a segment of a state highway in accordance with the requirements set out in the DOT operating instructions. Whereas firefighter Captain Kenny, there we go, and Bob Heminger of Wood River tragically passed away in 2004 after being trapped in a house fire while on duty. Whereas the family of Captain Kenny Oldwitz and the family of Captain Bob Heminger have requested that a segment of Nebraska Highway 30 in Wood River be named a fallen firefighter memorial highway. The proposed N30 segment is from Brunswick Road to 150th Road in Hall County. Whereas the naming of the highway segment will serve as a tribute to all firefighters who lost their lives in the line of duty and dedicated to Captain Wolfowitz and Captain Heminger for the sacrifice fighting the house fire in 2004. Whereas the State Highway Commission has determined that the highway naming request meets the requirements of Operating Procedure 60-1. Therefore, be it resolved, in accordance of the authority of the Operating Procedure 60-1, the State Highway Commission recommends to the Director of the Department of Transportation and to the Governor of Nebraska that the segment of Nebraska Highway 30 described above be the hereafter named the Fallen Fire Memorial Highway, naming Highway 30 per NDOT policy. Approve installation of 2 signs at either end of Highway 30 and Brunswick Road at 150th Road. I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Wolford, a second from Hawks. Is that correct?
Yes. Before we vote, the chair notes that in your reading of the resolution, in particular paragraph 4,
yes,
it talks about will serve as a tribute to all firefighters who lost their life. Is this intended to be all volunteer firefighters, all firefighters specifically, whether on a fire department? Example, Omaha, Lincoln, Norfolk, Fremont, et cetera, as paid firefighters, whereas the presentation this morning dealt with volunteer firefighters. I just raised the issue for the commission for discussion.
So the conversation that was had was, do we want to reserve the right if there was ever a situation we would be asked to name another in the tragic incident of a paid firefighter? Do we want to reserve that right, or do we want to make sure that everyone is encompassed in this?
Do you have a specific? I know you had mentioned all firefighters. I do understand though the conversation. So if you're comfortable with that, we can adjust it to attribute to volunteer firefighters. You're comfortable with that? Okay, we can make that adjustment if you guys are okay with that.
I'd invite discussion. I know there's a motion pending. I'd invite discussion relative to the amendment of the resolution to include the term all volunteer firefighters as opposed to all firefighters. And I would ask the movement if they would agree to amend their motion or if they want to stand on the motion as made and second.
I'm with the amendment.
I don't either.
Okay. Hearing that, that the movement and the second have agreed that they would to an amendment of the motion so that the resolution 2023-2, which was previously read by Sarah, that we would insert or add the term to all volunteer firefighters. With that amendment, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair would call the question. Sarah?
Commissioner Koppel.
Yes.
Commissioner Fagerland.
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes.
Commissioner Mello.
Yes.
Commissioner Hawk.
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig.
Yes.
Commissioner Wolford.
Yes.
Resolution approved. We will process this and I will keep you posted.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. I'm sure it's difficult. Moving then to the next item, This is the portion of the commission meeting where the public at large has an opportunity to make comment. I would first ask if there are any letters that have been,
Okay, we're going to go over the calendar.
oh, I'm sorry. My apologies.
No, you're okay. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. Commissioner Wolford found a section. One sentence, he found it. So we have to make a little bit of a modification. So in September, we had discussed making adjustments to the calendar, and it was discussed that I would come back in December with a few proposals for you just to ponder. We will vote on this in January. So there's 3 options. Please disregard options 1 and 2. If you want to pull up option 3 would follow the same protocol that we are currently following. So this is the same layout. This is 8 meetings, 4 in Lincoln, 4 out in the district. This would include no changes. It would be held at 8:30 a.m. on Fridays. Those would be held in January, March, May, June, August, September, October, and December. So that is option 3. The other 2 options that we are looking at, that we are proposing based on that September conversation would be option of reducing the number of meetings to 6 meetings. We are also proposing that we would alternate months. This would provide NDOT and the public a little bit more access to you, a little bit more coverage as well. This would reduce our Lincoln meetings down to 2 meetings, and we would maintain the 4 district meetings as it was determined in September that those are very important to the commission to maintain. So option 1 would be reducing this, of the reduction would be holding this in January, March, May, August, October, and December. This option would also include moving them from Friday morning to Thursday evening at 6 p.m. That's option 1. Option 2 would be to, maybe, let's load, would be maintaining the Friday time at 8:30, but it would be the reduction to 6 meetings, and it would adjust the calendar so that it would alter the months. Start in January, again, hit January, March, May, August, October, and December. So these are the 3 calendars that we're proposing. The reduction to 6, the goal was to continue to provide more flexibility to allow to meet people where they are. So to meet in the districts, still provide access to NDOT for business purposes, make sure you guys are still visiting with your constituents. But the reduction, our goal is to potentially increase attendance at these meetings. Do we have any questions from the commission? Like I said, we will vote on this in January, but this is for discussion so that we can prepare for that January meeting.
Any comments, questions?
We went through this, this is before Sarah was, it's been 15 years ago when we used to, originally we met every month, twice during Fridays. And we did change it when we went to the 4 outstate meetings, but there is one statute that says we have to meet in January and elect a chairman, which, but our original design when we changed the schedule was we wanted to meet in December for a Christmas party, sorry. We were going to minimize the winter meetings and the travel from Western Nebraska to Lincoln as much as we could. So that's when we had started meeting in late March for the first one of it. We do have the option now, though, we've also passed the virtual meetings that if we had for January, if we just had an election meeting, we'd make the chairman and the vice chair come, right? Everybody else could get online and we could just hold elections that way and then do something different that way also. As a thought, if that's what works.
You are correct. So per the statute, virtual meetings are allowed as long as the chair or vice chair are present in person and it is publicly accessible.
Yeah. So we do have an option there now that we didn't have when we started this, because I don't think we got the legislature to pass the virtual meeting statute at that time.
No, it's
That was
it's
more
more
recent.
recent. It's, I think
Yes.
it was 3 years ago, I believe.
So I would also, if we look at this in January, though, we have a lot of discussion. Why don't we pick 2 of the outstate meetings and do a Thursday night and do 2 on the Friday morning, and let's see how it goes. Let's give it a shot and see if we can get better attendance.
So are you
I mean-
proposing we maintain the 8 meetings and just change 2 district meetings to 6 PM
I'm
start?
okay with doing 6 meetings too. You know, we had told the department when we went to 8 meetings that if there was something that came up,
Yes.
that you needed a meeting in the interim month, call the meeting. And let's have it. And if the department has something that needs acted on, there's no reason to wait 60 days to do something we could do right away.
Okay.
And I think the commission should still be flexible enough to do that if the department needs something in order to meet a schedule.
Okay, so what you're proposing is basically a hybrid of the proposal, so we will do 6 meetings. No, I'm just saying.
We just made more work for you, Sarah.
Oh, I know. So we're proposing reducing it down to 6, maintaining the 8:30 start time, except with the exception of 2 program meetings as a trial. Those would be held at 6 on a Thursday. And then January, pending weather, in addition to December, we would have either the vice chair or chair present and allow for the other commissioners to attend virtually if needed. Okay.
No, I think that sounds good.
Okay. I'll prepare go ahead.
As I understand the statute, it requires that we meet at least 6 times, but we could meet more, correct?
That is correct.
And so, these things are always evolving. We could, in January, pass a calendar that reduces it to 6 meetings, 2 in Lincoln, 4 out in the districts, try the different timeframes, and we could come back the next year and say, look, we didn't think there's enough continuity by only being in Lincoln twice. We could change it next year and change it back to 8. And if we found that the 8:30 in the districts outside of Lincoln, that 8:30 didn't work as well as 6 o'clock, then we could change all of those out meetings to 6 if we think that's appropriate, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I will draft a calendar for you guys to review and approve in January based off this conversation, which would reduce us down to 6. 2 of those outstate, we will adjust the times and see, and then reevaluate at the end of next year.
And Sarah, wasn't one of your concerns, so that all the commissioners are aware, wasn't one of your concerns that if we adopt a new calendar, we'd have to elect new chair and vice chairs? Consider doing that today as opposed to what has traditionally been done in January.
That was a concern, but given the statute that he found in the financial section, we won't need that anymore.
But in fairness, you did a very good job of trying to come up with options, with alternatives so that the commission could discuss it. Any other comments?
The last one I'd say is forget the February meetings because an outstate, I don't know, Commissioner Leaf Green has the same, he's not here today, but he expressed this coming from Gearing.
Mhm.
You know, the fewer winter meetings, the end of March is a lot better roll of the dice than February. So,
Yes. Well, and that was good for you to point out, the virtual option, if weather conditions do occur.
Yeah.
As long as we have a vice chair and chair present and the public a venue is available for the public to attend, you all can call in virtually. So that is allowed for the statute. But I will prepare that based off this conversation for you guys to review and approve in January, along with the elections of chair and vice chair in January.
Any other discussions? Hearing none. Now, Sarah, may I move to
You may,
public comment section? As I indicated toward the beginning of the meeting, there is an opportunity at these commission meetings for the public at large to make comment. We are at that point in the agenda, the public input. At this time, I would ask if there are any letters that have been submitted relative to any matters that need to be read into the record.
We received no letters.
Okay, thank you. Moving then to the next portion of public input. This is an opportunity for individuals who are either here or attending by live stream to come before the commission. You have to introduce yourself. You need to state your full first and last name, and preferably spell your last name so there are no misspellings, and then make your comment. So I would open the meeting to that.
Good morning. My name is Julie Harris, Harris. I'm the Executive Director of Bike Walk Nebraska. We're the nonprofit that works on advocating for safe biking and walking across the state. I just wanted to come and say a brief thank you. I wanted to make sure that Don got appropriate thanks, and from our perspective, from the work that he and others have done for the vulnerable road user assessment presentation that you heard earlier. It's having people that bike and walk included in the safety plan, having this vulnerable road user assessment work done, the Complete Streets study that's happening right now, all are very important to people in Nebraska who travel in ways other than in cars. And I appreciate that you as highway commissioners may not think that your job involves people that bike and walk. But I would like to remind you that when the highways come into towns, they become main streets. Those highways are still used by people that bike and walk. People need to cross, kids need to get to school, to the library. Folks want to get to the coffee shop to reminisce with their friends they used to work with, whatever it is in the small towns. These are highway issues. And so I just wanted to say thank you to the staff and remind you that this is an important issue, and we're always here for assistance if you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
You have one online. Mike Helgerson, Helgerson of MAPA. Mike?
Hello, thank you, Sarah. Yep, I sure can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Sarah, and thanks to the commission for the opportunity to speak today. As Sarah noted, I'm Mike Helgerson. I'm Executive Director of the Metropolitan Area Planning Agency, and would just like to make a few comments just based on the agenda here today. First, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Mello to the Highway Commission. Heath is a close partner of MAPA in his role at the Chamber, particularly with the Economic Development Partnership and really aligning our transportation and economic development planning processes for the betterment of our communities. And District 2, as you all know, aligns very well with MAPA's planning jurisdiction with communities both inside and outside of our MPO jurisdiction. So excited to have Heath in that seat, excited to have a commissioner from District 2 representing our region. But overall, I largely like to echo Julie's comments here today. One, just to really kind of thank Director Kramer and Deputy Director Jabber and Deputy Director Giamschetti for a number of initiatives, including the Motorist Assist Program. That was a partnership between MAPA and our member jurisdictions, Nebraska Department of Transportation and the Nebraska State Patrol as a volunteer-run program. And we're tremendously excited to see that effort back online. Again, like to echo the comments about the vulnerable road user assessment. I think this is a really transformative effort, even though it comes from a new federal requirement. I think the coordination, the involvement of Don and his team with local stakeholders, with statewide partners and MPOs like MAPA has been tremendous. And it provides a really strong framework for centering our planning process at both the regional and statewide level on safety going forward. And then also just like to really call out the coordination, ongoing coordination that Director Kramer alluded to between local jurisdictions and Jody Gibson's staff in the local projects division around the infrastructure bill and implementation funding. Tremendous opportunities, but a lot of work, and we're trying to do that in a really kind of deliberative way to make sure that we're not straining both local and state resources. And so continue to be very hopeful and optimistic about the opportunities of partnership there. And then finally, I'd just like to commend Ryan Huff and his team from the strategic planning team on the Complete Streets research study that held some meetings earlier this week. again, I think there's tremendous opportunities to highlight some of the issues that have been really central to MAPA's planning within the Omaha Council Bluffs metro area. But having the state as a partner on many of those, evaluating how we move those projects towards implementation is really a tremendous opportunity. But really, thanks to NDOT staff, a lot of collaboration, a lot of coordination here over the last couple of months, and we really appreciate it over here in our metro area.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Any other online comments, Sarah?
I do not see any more.
Any other comments from the public at large that are in attendance? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the chair's remarks. I would just like to wish everyone a happy holiday season and a happy new year. And we will hopefully see everyone back in January. Sarah, public meetings calendar?
Yes, we have quite a few coming up. So we have a public hearing scheduled December 21st for the Norfolk to Wisner project that was discussed in Amy's presentation. This is along the 275 corridor. That will be held at 5:30 to 7:30 at the Wisner Pilger High School in Wisner, Nebraska. I believe Commissioner Koppel, you're planning to attend that meeting.
I'm hoping so, yes.
The other, I am going to mention some projects we have coming up. They're not finalized or scheduled, but they will be occurring between February and April, just to put them on your radar. So we have Highway 81 York to Columbus, N66 connection in Louisville, Lincoln West Beltway, and Red Cloud. We also have 2 pre-construction meetings to put on your radar, which are for US 281 in Grand Island and then in Seward as well. So my staff will be coordinating with you to make sure that you guys are in the loop on when those are scheduled, as we do anticipate we're having a crowd for those. The next scheduled Highway Commission meeting is going to be January 19th at 8:30 a.m. That will be here at NDOT headquarters. And with that, I believe that's all of them for now.
Thank you. You did a great job today. There were lots of material and lots of issues to get organized. So thank you very much. With that, we will adjourn. Thanks, good job.
We'll leave it.
Calendar. So,
As long as, I mean.